All right, ladies and gentlemen, we could be days away from everything we know changing. The whole world could look different by the time we get to next week. We're talking about the United States exploding into full-blown civil war. We're talking about a full-blown World War III scenario being ignited in the Middle East, howbeit Iran. There is a lot of information that is flooding across social media, that's coming across mainstream media. It's coming out everywhere involving what's going on in LA that's spreading across the United States, an event that we're only 48 hours away from here in the U.S. that could change America as we know it. And then new intelligence is coming forward saying that Israel is now fully ready to strike Iran. There's a lot of movement, militarily speaking, going on in the Middle East in preparation for this very thing. Now, we know that there's been a lot of talk and chatter about this for years. Israel's going to attack Iran, okay? And they didn't. And then a year would go by, new intelligence says they're going to strike Iran, and they didn't. So people has become kind of numb to this. But today's different. I'm going to show you why today's different, because there's movement happening. There's situations happening, and it's unfolding, and it's happening so fast that it's hard to keep up with. But today, buckle up, because the wars, rumors of wars, nation against nation, ethnos against ethnos, ethnicity against ethnicity, kingdom against kingdom, all of these, the birth pangs of the Messiah looks to be about to go to a whole other trimester if these things indeed come to fruition. Or will they fizzle out? Time will tell, but we're going to get after it today. So let's go.
The following program is brought to you by friends and partners of End Time Headlines.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what you're doing right now as far as where you're at. It's 8 p.m. Eastern in my neck of the woods, 7 p.m. Central. But if you need to, get you a cup of coffee, get you something with caffeine in it. You need to be alert. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've got a lot to pray about. We've got a lot to prepare for. We've got a lot to be vigilant about. We need to have our heads on a swivel. This is no time to let our guard down and be apathetic and be naive and be arrogant, because there's a lot of things happening very quickly. And we want to get you up to par with that. Let me take you, before we do this, before we start unloading on this thing and getting right into it, you know the drill. If you're a regular viewer, listener of our program, and you are in the video portion of this, Rumble, YouTube, whatever the video portion of this, do us a favor, hit that like button. That's going to help get our material out there on these platforms and on the algorithm. Take it a step further, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification. And then we like to say, if you'd like to be sure that you catch all of our content, every headline, breaking news, prophecy update, podcast, whatever the case would be, you need to download our free app. And you can get it on your Apple store, your Android store, depending on your device. Download it today, hit yes to push notifications, and that's all you got to do, and you're squared away and you're good to go. If you're watching the video of this, in the description, it says download our free app. You can just go right there, click on that, and you can get it today. So again, this is End Time Headlines, news and headlines from a prophetic perspective. If you're new, we welcome you. I myself welcome you. I'm Ricky Scaparro, the founder and the voice of End Time Headlines. In the chat on YouTube, if you're there, you'll see admins with the blue wrench. They're going to welcome you as well. And look, all of our ETH family that are regular viewers, they're all going to welcome you as well. You're going to get a warm welcome here to our ETH family. Let us know if you're new. Let us know in the comments and where you guys are tuning in from, whether it's in the United States, outside the United States. We'd love to hear that. And we hope and pray that you are blessed by our content that we provide. So let's go to Los Angeles. Let's go to ground zero of all that has sprung forward there and is spiraling out of control with these quote unquote protests that are happening there. Here's some new information. Marines to deploy on LA streets within 2 days with the authority to detain civilians. Y'all remember all those Marines that were sent? What was it, like 700? It was 500. Then I heard another report said 700. Look at this. U.S. Marines will join the National Guard troops on the streets of LA within 2 days. And again, that puts us right in that June 14th timeline. They would be authorized, quote, to detain anyone who interferes with immigration officers on raids or protesters who confront federal agents. So let me repeat that. These hundreds of Marines that'll be joining the National Guard in LA, they have been given the authorization to detain anyone who interferes with immigration officers on raids or protesters who confront federal agents. U.S. President Donald Trump ordered the deployments over the objections of California Governor Gavin Newsom, sparking a national debate about the use of military on U.S. soil and animating protests that have spread from L.A. to other major cities, including New York, and I'm ashamed to say it, Atlanta, my neck of the woods, and Chicago. L.A. on Wednesday endured a 6-day, so we've gone 6 days with this, protests that have been largely, quote, peaceful. I like how they say largely peaceful, but occasionally punctuated by violence, mostly contained to a few blocks of the city's downtown area. So if you're wanting to take a little walk down LA when the sun goes down, don't worry. It's mostly or largely peaceful, but you got to watch those few blocks of the city's downtown area. As if anyone's walking peacefully downtown Los Angeles after dark anyway. But anyway, if you feel frisky and you want to take that walk, go right ahead. But anyway, the protest broke out last Friday. Again, we don't want to reiterate all this. This is just going to reiterate everything that we already know. So I don't want to exhaust you with that. But again, I just wanted to highlight there that these Marines have now been given the authorization to detain individuals. Now, let's talk about Gavin Newsom. I thought this was interesting because there's some language here that I want to point out to you. All right, Newsom tells the nation, he went out publicly and stated that Trump is, quote, destroying American democracy, and he called on Americans to stand up to President Trump in a nationally televised address. Now, what does this even mean? Have you noticed all these code? It's almost like this coded language that's being released. It's being publicized. It's being postered. It's being put in bulletins. It's been put in flyers. I'm talking about the event that's going to be happening on the 14th. If you read the language of these quote unquote peaceful protests, it tells people to rise up and stand up against Donald Trump. And now here is Governor Gavin Newsom on a nationally televised address calling on Americans to, quote, stand up to President Trump and declaring that he is, quote, destroying American democracy. All right, we got a video on this, and you can hear it straight from the horse's mouth, per se. Let's
Governor Newsom delivered an impassioned primetime rebuke of President Trump, accusing him of orchestrating a stepped-up assault on democracy and calling on Americans to rise up against authoritarianism.
If some of us could be snatched off the streets without a warrant, based only on suspicion or skin color, then none of us are safe. Authoritarian regimes begin by targeting people who are least able to defend themselves, but they do not stop there. Trump and his loyalists, they thrive on division because it allows them to take more power and exert even more control. And by the way, Trump, he's not opposed to lawlessness and violence as long as it serves him. What more evidence do we need than January 6th? This is a president who in just over 140 days has fired government watchdogs that could hold him accountable for corruption and fraud. He's declared a war on culture, on history, on science, on knowledge itself. Databases, quite literally, are vanishing. He's delegitimizing news organizations, and he's assaulting the First Amendment. And the threat of defunding them, at threat, he's dictating what universities themselves can teach. He's targeting law firms and the judicial branch that are the foundations of an orderly and civil society. What Donald Trump wants most is your fealty, your silence to be complicit in this moment. Do not give in to him.
So what do you think, guys? I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Is this a threat? Is this a call out to the cities of America on the 14th to quote unquote rise up against totalitarianism, as Governor Newsom would call it? Now, here's an interesting piece from Prophecy News Watch. What happens this Saturday could change America forever. 1,800 plus protests. And again, we talked about this on Tuesday, on our Tuesday program. This, again, we're talking about the No King's Day protest plan for this Saturday. And here is the map of where all of these locations are going to happen. Let's read a little bit of this. We are on the brink of something we have never seen before in modern American history. More than 1,800 and counting simultaneous political protests scheduled to erupt across the country on the very same day. This is just not another angry weekend. This is just not another round of, quote, peaceful protests spiraling to looting and lawlessness. No, this is coordinated, and this is important to hear this. It is coordinated, it is funded, and it is staged chaos. And that's what we just talked about on Tuesday night. And it is being unleashed like a match dropped on a national powder keg. Quote, they're calling it the No Kings protest, and it's being billed as a nationwide day of defiance. But make no mistake, this isn't about defending democracy. It's about dismantling it. It's about pushing the limits of public disorder until the system bends or breaks. Again, remember what we talked about. I love pulling other people's commentary in here just because the testimony of others to confirm what's in my heart. And it just lets me know that I'm on the right track of my thought process here. Remember, I said in order to introduce a beast system, the current system has to dematerialize. It has to be dismantled. It has to be removed. It has to be crushed. And this is what this is all about here. And we'll get deeper into this in a minute. And the symbolism of staging it all on the Flag Day and on President Trump's birthday is no coincidence. It's an in-your-face declaration of war on the ideals, the institutions, and yes, even the identity of this country. The organizers make their agenda clear. No thrones, no crowns, no kings. But behind that populist slogan is a violent, simmering resentment that sees the Constitution as an outdated relic, law enforcement as an enemy, and national pride as a sickness. The disturbing part, this isn't some fringe underground movement. They have big-name backers. Pay attention, ladies and gentlemen. Big-name backers, millions in funding, and infrastructure ready to reactivate unrest at a moment's notice. The preview has already been terrifying. The ground zero of this, which was Los Angeles, and this has been going on for 6 days, going on 7 days. San Francisco has seen thousands flood the streets waving inverted flags and blasting anti-police anthems while committing acts of vandalism. Dallas and Austin are already locking down intersections as tensions spike. Again, this is spilling over into Atlanta, Georgia, my neck of the woods. Even deep red Texas isn't immune anymore. And this could just be the warm-up. In just 2 more days, on the 14th, while President Trump holds his birthday parade with military pageantry, the left is planning to turn America's city squares. Now, again, notice they pointed and they said the left. I try to get away from the left versus right because I believe, again, my opinion, Someone else is pulling the strings here, but they want you to blame this party and that party to blame that party. Newsom attacking Trump, Trump attacking Newsom. Y'all get the picture. Okay, they want to turn America's city squares and courthouse steps into the front lines of a cultural and political uprising. This is the kind of flashpoint moment that either fizzles out or explodes into something unrecognizable. Trump has already promised a very heavy force in response to any disruption in Washington. I want to say that again. Trump came out and he warned that if anyone causes any disruption in Washington, they will be met with, quote, very heavy force. Could we see bloodshed in the streets of Washington on the 14th? I hope not. Nobody wants to see this. But you can see how things are just very, very unstable, very volatile right now. Things are just building up. Sources now say up to 20,000 additional National Guard troops may be activated for border enforcement, riot control, and emergency detention operations across the country. Interesting. Emergency detention operations. Again, let this sink in. We're mobilizing troops on American soil to prevent our cities from tearing themselves apart. This is a state of a national emergency, in case you haven't figured that out. Now, whoever's doing this is trying to put pressure on Trump, but nothing rallies Americans more than watching the country descend into disorder. If whoever the powers be that is doing this thinks that mayhem helps them within the narrative, the average voter watching buildings burn and cops getting assaulted doesn't want no kings. They want law and order. So again, you know what this is spelling? You know what this is creating the environment for? A civil war. Because you've got this group against this group in the streets of America. And the chilling part about this, if the No Kings movement gets the spectacle it craves, we may be in for an entire summer of unrest. Just go back and think of 2020, 5 years ago, and you're going to get your picture of what we're talking about. But this time, it'll be far more sophisticated, better organization, more technology, more money, and even deeper ideological rage. Because again, and we're getting ready to show you what if what transpires in the Middle East, what we think is going to happen. Wow, the timing of this is impeccable. By next month or the month of August, we could literally be staring down weekly mass demonstrations, escalated urban riots, and an open challenge to federal authority in sanctuary cities. If illegal immigration enforcement ramps up again, or if court rulings come down on key political cases, again, this will capitalize on this moment, and it will be more gasoline on the fire. All right, I want to show you this. This is from the Independence. The 35 cities where anti-ICE protests have erupted across the U.S. 19 states, 35 cities, hundreds of arrests, and thousands of military troops deployed. Again, I'm going to show you this in visual. All right, so when you scroll down in here, it says, where have anti-ICE protests taken place? The Los Angeles protests have sparked nationwide action since Friday, again, of last week, in over 35 cities so far, and at least 3 cities, St. Louis, Seattle, and Indianapolis, may see more protests today. And that was then when this was published, it was on Tuesday. So now here we are on Thursday of the recording of this. So you see this little chart here. Red is the major protests. So you see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 locations there. The black are just quote unquote protests that are all springing up. And again, and then you see the yellow upcoming protest. Now, again, we're talking about 35 cities across America, but this has not even gotten to Saturday. I want to read this. Quote, it is difficult to provide an exact number of undocumented immigrants in Chicago alone, as official statistics aren't readily available. However, a recent report from the Migration Policy Institute estimated that roughly listen to this number, ladies and gentlemen. 511,000 undocumented immigrants reside in Illinois alone, with a significant portion, up to 36%, located in the city of Chicago itself. This suggests that a large but not precisely known undocumented immigrant population is within Chicago. Why am I telling you this? Because it is inevitable that Chicago will be one of these hot locations that this is going to happen. So if you live if you live somewhere in the Chicago Metroplex, that region, that location, you need to be aware of what's going on here. Because there are about 11,000 police officers in Chicago. Needless to say, they are vastly outnumbered. If these numbers are correct, you're talking about 511,000 against 11,000. This could get real nasty real quick. But then you've got New York City. Now, we talked about New York City on Tuesday night because that is the home of Times Square Church. It was formerly pastored by David Wilkerson, again, a true man of God who passed away, went on to be with the Lord in 2011. If you didn't catch our podcast on Tuesday, I want to recommend everybody to go back and listen to that. There is an audio clip that we pulled up in the late 90s, and it was recorded from CBN News where they did an interview with him, and in which the Lord showed him that there'd be 1,000 fires, and he mentioned specifically New York, and he kind of made the point that this would spread across America. Now, so that New York is definitely one of those locations where you could really see this happening. I want to read this. And according to a recent report, police handcuffed 86 demonstrators at an anti-ICE rally in Lower Manhattan this past week on Tuesday. Among them, the daughter of a Moroccan actor, a self-proclaimed poet from an upscale college, and a co-ed whose family owns a posh home in the Hamptons. Quote, and this is from the New York Post, "My sense is the vast majority of the 2,500 people that were there to protest peacefully." This is according to the NYPD commissioner, told local affiliate Fox 5 News. Quote, "There was a smaller group of a few hundred where we did have to make arrests. Some of them were looking for trouble." Now, again, according to estimates, there are around 36,000 police officers in New York City. So again, the reality is New York is not really in much better shape than Chicago if something on a large scale was to begin to unfold there. And it is interesting. I do want to point out here that Chicago and New York are two of the cities where the Trump administration will be deploying ICE tactical units. Let me say that again. Chicago and New York are two specific cities where states where President Trump and his administration will be deploying ICE tactical units. Quote, "Donald Trump is set to deploy ICE tactical units to 5 Democrat-run cities amid the riots in LA as Gavin Newsom nearly broke into tears while blaming his administration for inciting the California chaos. The military-style units are set to storm New York City, Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Northern Virginia." Let me read those again for you guys that are listening and watching. We're talking about New York City, Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Northern Virginia. So these are 5 major cities that are all on watch. You need to be paying attention because this stuff could be coming to your front door if you live in those locations. 4 of those 5 are blue cities. Now we're talking about politically speaking here, while Northern Virginia contains the Democrat enclave of Alexandria. Now, I want to switch gears here, and I want to go back to a thought that I talked about earlier. When I said that while everybody's focused on the left and the right, then the question comes, and I brought this up on Tuesday night, who is the main funder of this? Who's funding this? Who's supplying weapons? Who are these mystery weapon suppliers? Who is organizing these demonstrations? Is there a more sinister side to this? Well, I caught this. I was flipping through the channels last night and I saw a clip from News Nation, and I knew I wanted to bring this up. So I want to pull this clip up, and we're going to watch this together. And I want to show you something that Chris Cuomo gets a little bit deeper into that I thought was very interesting. Check this out.
It's all
Watch
set
this.
to take over. You've got Bill O'Reilly on tonight. Lots to discuss.
Don't remind me. No, thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate it. Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to News Nation, where right and left come to be reasonable. Please don't miss the forest for the trees with these demonstrations. We have bigger issues than the political and legal battles that are playing out about ICE or deploying troops. They matter, but not as much as what I want to talk to you about. We have bigger problems at play on streets all over our country. Dozens of protests have erupted throughout the country. You know that, right? We're focused on LA, but they're all over the place. And they are all related, and we're not talking about it. So we're doing the work here at News Nation to connect the dots. And I have a lawmaker on tonight that's starting the same drive in Congress. And I'm telling you, these protests are not really just about ICE. They are a coordinated effort to recruit as many people and different types of groups that may have different ideas, but they all share a common goal.
Now, what is that common goal? Listen to this. Let's rewind it. Listen, check it out.
ICE. They are a coordinated effort to recruit as many people and different types of groups that may have different ideas, but they all share a common goal: destroying the West, democracy, our country.
There it is. That's what we've been, again, that's what we've said. Because the West, America, is the thorn in the flesh, or let's just call it what it is, guys. It's the thorn in the flesh. It's the stumbling block. It's the hindrance for a new world order. It is the stumbling block for the beast system. Now, you may call it the new world order. I call it the beast system, because this new world order that's coming, if you want a picture of it, go to Genesis chapter 11, the Tower of Babel. Go to, it's sprinkled, guys. There is blueprints of this sprinkled all through the Old Testament and New Testament. The rise of Nebuchadnezzar and the golden statue and the legislations that was passed under the Medes and Persians when Daniel was there, where they were forcing people to comply with their religion. You will not pray to any other God. All of this, these are, I call it the if we're baking something here, we're sprinkling a little bit of this here, and there's a little bit of there, and there's a little bit there, and then we're going to mix it all up, and what we're going to present to you is the beast system. Then you get to Revelation 13, and you got these two powers that rise up together, and they work in unison, the false prophet and the Antichrist. And they have this beast system formed, which is the mark of the beast and the image of the beast. And before you get to that, there's going to be this global religion. There's going to be this global political arena. Remember, 10 sovereign kingdoms will give their power over to the beast in 1 hour. So you're going to have 10 kings with kingdoms. According to Revelation, when this Antichrist comes and emerges to power, he'll be so powerful that they will surrender, they will capitulate and give their sovereignty. They'll give their freedoms over. Help us, take us, lead us to where you're taking us. And they will give their power over to the beast in 1 hour's time. Now, it is my opinion, I don't think that's a play on words there when John said that these 10 kings will do this in 1 hour, because it says that whoever this mystery Babylon is in the earth, mystery Babylon will be destroyed in 1 hour. And it says that these nations, all these nations that will see this will fear the smoke that's rising from mystery Babylon that's been destroyed. The merchants, the rich men, the elites, the traders, all of them will weep and they'll cry and they'll howl because of the destruction that has come upon mystery Babylon. It's interesting because James chapter 5 says that in the last days, the rich and the very wealthy, they will weep and they will howl because of the miseries that's come upon them, because they've stored up treasures in the last days. So all of this, I'm telling you, we're getting closer and closer, and we have to. I know this is a sobering reality for many of you, because you're very patriotic, and you've whether you realize it or not, you've invested so much of your time, your energy, and your effort into a political party because you thought this is America, this is a sovereign nation, this is the home of this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. So if I vote, if I do my part, I trust that my politician is going to take care of me. He's going to save America. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, America has to get out of the way. America has to go down. That doesn't mean you have to go down with it. Because listen, I'm looking for that gospel ship, not the patriotic ship. In my opinion, the patriotic ship is like the Titanic. They claim it's unsinkable, but it looks like an iceberg is finally here. And it only takes one strike of an iceberg, one breach, one opening, one crack on the foundation, and the water seeps in. So do you have your life jacket ready? And I'm not talking about a physical life jacket. I'm talking about the name of the Lord is a strong tower in which the righteous run into and are safe. Some trust in horsemen, some put their trust in chariots, but we shall put our trust in the Lord, for he is our deliverer. We shall look unto the hills, lift up your heads, and look unto the hills in which our help comes from. When you begin to see all these things come to pass, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. When you put all this together, Christ is our hope and our foundation. It is the life jacket. It is the thing that's gonna get us through whatever we're about to embark on. Let's go back to the video, because there's more here I want you to listen to, because he's going to go a little bit deeper in this. Listen to this.
This is the fundamentalist threat playing out. We're just not calling it that because we're not seeing it like that, because we're so caught in this right versus left BS. The latest salvo after the embassy shootings, the IVF clinic, the healthcare CEO murder, the campus chaos, now it's these. It's all part of a growing fundamentalism that is the biggest threat to all of us. You got neo-nationalists in the same place as far-left radical anarchists and extreme Islamists. This is not organic. It's not just protest. It's not one community coming together to fight oppressive.
Look at that picture right there. Washington, New York, Chicago, LA, all this. You know what this is? This is Luke 21. And on the earth, there shall be distress of nations with perplexity. This is one of the signs of the coming of the Lord, guys.
Tactics. It's not really about ICE, I'm telling you. And most important and most dangerous is that there's clearly organization and funding of these protests. Two questions: who and why? Now, let's start with the truth. It's not uncommon for protests to receive funding and organization from political groups. I had a guy on the show who pays people to protest. I mean, that's a thing, okay, but not these. These protests are fed by dark sources with a desire for our destruction.
Wow. I got to rewind that. Let's listen.
And funding of these protests. Two questions: who and why? Now, let's start with the truth. It's not uncommon for protests to receive funding and organization from political groups. I had a guy on the show who pays people to protest. I mean, that's a thing, okay, but not these. These protests are fed by dark sources with a desire for our destruction.
Funded by dark forces with the demise to see our destruction.
One of the main players in organizing and funding the Los Angeles protests is a group called CHIRLA, okay? C-H-I-R-L-A, acronym, Coalition for Humane Immigration Rights, Immigrants' Rights, whatever. Dig a little, and that starts to look like a misnomer. They have received millions in government grants and state grants, but now reports are showing that there may be a foreign link, specifically from China, funding and
Okay, so now News Nation is laying the blame on China. Again, I don't know. Let me hear your thoughts on this. Because again, this is will China be instrumental in bringing down America? Will China be one of those nations that will come along and aid and support and unify with the Antichrist when he rises to power? Let's listen.
and organizing these protests. Where in China? Who in China? The pro-Chinese far-left Party for Socialism and Liberation. They're known as the PSL. They are working with Churla, helping fund the protests in Los Angeles and maybe elsewhere. Remember, all the parties in China are controlled by the CCP. So this is China. And the party is pushing to destroy capitalism and the West. This is its agenda. This is what China wants. They even have a term for the effort. It's called the smokeless war, where they have this theory of how they'll destroy the West without actually taking to the battlefield.
Wow.
That's what they did during the anti-Israel campus protests. The PSL worked hand in glove with anti-Zionist student groups and helped organize and fund the Columbia campus encampments. Now it gets scarier. Where does the PSL get its money? Enter Shanghai-based socialist billionaire Neville Singham. 2017, he sold his tech company for about $1 billion. Reports show the same year he started funding far-left groups like the PSL to the tune of...
So we're not going to mention George Soros here. Come on. He's involved in this too, and we know that.
millions.
Among others as well.
Singham is not America's friend. He has deep business ties to the CCP, but also has strong ideological ties to communism, period. People who worked for him says he's an admirer of Mao, Che Guevara, Hugo Chavez, not friends of American culture. According to the New York Times, Singham has funded and developed a deep global empire of pro-China nonprofits in the media and grassroots political space, steering millions into these groups over the years, including the PSL. And guess who was associated with the PSL and other Singham-funded groups? Elias Rodriguez. Ring a bell? This scumbag, the 30-year-old Chicago man who murdered 2 Israeli staffers in cold blood last month to make a political point. Remember, he just waited to be taken in. That is fundamentalism. Now, is this Chinese sabotage part of the negotiations with China and the president and the administration? Probably not. And that is probably a mistake. You see, we are too focused on these fringe fights, fabricated division to drive podcast followings and media cycles, fringe agendas. We are missing the big picture. And you know why? Because it doesn't allow one side to have an advantage over the other. That's how stupid our politics has gotten. Look at how what is happening here is the same as the echo of what we're seeing all over the world. Look at what happened in the Middle East today. So Trump is pushing on Iran, right? And the risk of violence in response to that is on the rise because that's what Iran does. The UK just issued a dire warning to its ships in the Persian Gulf that there could be a military escalation. What do you think that means they're hearing on the intelligence side? Then hours later, our State Department announced it's evacuating personnel from the Middle East.
Okay, so now we're getting ready to get into this in deeper discussions because we're going to shift gears from America to the Middle East. But I'm going to go ahead and let him talk about this, and then we'll just we'll go from whatever he doesn't cover, we'll finish it.
This is why I keep saying we need to stop fighting with each other when there is a growing threat to kill all of us.
Now, I came across this. This is very interesting. Did you know that they are using Predator drones in Los Angeles? Look at this article. I'm going to show you a video in just 1 second, but I want to read this headline first and we'll get deeper into this. Predator drone overwatch in LA sparks outrage. Quote, is Trump testing martial law tactics in blue America? All right, check this out.
Brett Velico, he joins us now. And Brett, I know Carly has prepared extensively for this segment, so I'm going to let her take it from here.
That's right. Yeah, good morning, Brett. So we want to talk to you about drones because we just showed some LA riot footage where it was a drone that was displaying that footage, called a Predator drone. And not surprisingly, the people who are supporting these riots are saying those drones usually fly during military combat. Now they're flying over LA riots. How dare they fly on U.S. soil? So what is your reaction to that criticism?
All right, before we get into this, isn't it interesting that last year, was it last year? Yes, I believe it was last year, because it's been a while since we talked about this. Remember, yes, it was last year. Remember all the drone activity. Oh, yes, in New Jersey, and then it was in New York, and then we saw them in Atlanta, and then they were seen in California. And then nobody could tell us who and what they belonged to and what their agenda was. And the government was hush about it. And the feds were hush about it. And the military was hush about it. And then Trump was elected and he promised, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And I'm going to tell everybody what these are and who's behind it and what their agenda is. And everybody was expecting this bombshell report. And then Trump gets up and says, well, here's what we can tell you. They're not foreign actors. And they're part of some type of experiment here on U.S. soil. Again, isn't it interesting? Now you're seeing these predators now at play in L.A. And again, these are not commercial drones. These are military grade drones. These predator drones in Los Angeles. Folks, again, stop being deceived by this left and right nonsense. Everybody, they knew what they were doing. I believe everything that we saw, all those drones that we saw last year that was going over and scouting, it was all in preparation for what's coming and what was coming and what is now here happening on U.S. soil. Wake up. Again, it is well orchestrated, well funded, and we're seeing it play out right before our eyes.
Well, hey, first, good morning, and thanks for having me on the show again. It's great to see you guys. And look, these are not armed drones with Hellfire missiles that are launching off of them or ready to fire at protesters. So don't.
Yeah, right now they're not.
Worry. They're really there to provide this sort of insight into criminal activity, capture footage of protests, feed intel to the local authorities. You have these large, massive groups of people popping up in areas around LA quickly, and that's something that law enforcement needs to get ahead of. And CBP, Customs Border Protection, they've had this fleet of unarmed drones for quite some time. Typically they're flying along the southern border of Mexico looking for drug cartel activity. They're used for more high-profile operations, but every once in a while they get tasked for domestic operations. And these things, they sit very, very high, typically 20,000 feet above ground, and they can see a lot of terrain that way and cover a lot of space. And so, it may be concerning for some Americans, but this is perfectly legal for them to fly over the airspace, especially when it comes to the fact now that the National Guard has been deployed. They have military assets like this that they can task out to support their operation. And that's really part of deploying the National Guard when it's activated by the president. It's not just about the individual soldiers, it's the resources, it's the surveillance assets, it's the intelligence, and it's this full support structure that comes along the way. So this is really a good thing for everyone's protection.
Yeah.
All right, remember, we have to convince the American population that a militarized police state is the best for your protection. Think about it. You have to convince. So what if the agenda is to desensitize you from the presence of military, National Guard, Marines, Predator drones, where this has become the new reality? What is this setting the stage for? Now, let me pull this up. I want to go back to this article because I think this is interesting. We need to have this discussion. All right, let's read a little bit of this. Los Angeles, the city of sprawling protests and political resistance, was subject to scrutiny last weekend, this time in the skies. Flight trackers and aircraft data show that an MQ-9 Reaper, a military-rated drone often employed in foreign combat areas, flew over LA during political protests. The drone, which traced the hexagonal flight path over Paramount and downtown LA, later went on to be tracked towards the U.S.-Mexico border. The aircraft lacked an initial call sign, raising suspicions and speculations among civil rights activists and aerial hobbyists. Air traffic control audio recordings captured by tracking enthusiast Aeroscout apparently verified that the aircraft was a DHS-piloted Q-9 Reaper drone. The fact that such a drone hovered over one of America's largest cities during peaceful protests, again, peaceful protest, far from it, has raised new alarms regarding the Trump administration's deployment of military resources for surveillance domestically. Now, you may say, well, this seems like it's from a left-wing rag or publication that you're reading from. Guys, I'm trying to bring a balance. If you've not noticed that, I think I bring stuff from Fox News, I bring stuff from CNN, I bring stuff from News Nation. So I try to hit both because I want to get you, listen, you don't want to be in an echo chamber and hearing only one source of the information. Because again, that people who buy into this thing, that this is the left versus the right, that's what you're going to do. If you're left, you're going to be in a left echo chamber, and that's all you're going to hear. If you're right and you're of the right wing, you're going to listen to your right wing echo chamber sources, and that's all you're going to listen to. But if you're like me and you've woken up to you have woke up to the point to realize there's a bigger agenda to this, I want to know the chatter from both sides and get the big picture for myself. I'm a grown adult. I can intellectually think for myself. I don't need some right-wing commentator to sift through everything that's going on and give me their propaganda, or the left wing and give me their propaganda. Those days are over. That's why the mainstream media itself is collapsing, because people they don't trust the mainstream media anymore to give them the truth. The aviation tracker spotted a Predator drone, according to 404 Media. Although not new, Customs and Border Protection deployed such drones in 2020, amid, again, the George Floyd protests. This increase, particularly in Democratic City, is perceived as more politically motivated. All right, again, it's sprinkled with a lot of left-wing propaganda here. I do want to read this here. Quote, "This is what happens when the federal government moves in and takes the authority away from the state or away from local government. I don't think our city should be used for an experiment." Remember, we talked about that on Tuesday. This was from the LA Mayor Karen Bass, who she believes that LA is being used as as training grounds or an experiment ground for this administration and for their weapons and things that they're deploying out there. But again, this is nothing new, because they've used cities in America as quote unquote experiment locations for all kinds of things, whether it be laser weapons, disasters, weather modification. Oh, come on. I could go deeper, but I don't want to we want to keep this up on the air. Okay. Just again, guys, do your diligence. Do your homework, and you need to do your research, and you'll get the answer. I promise you. Let me pull this up. I thought this was interesting. Very, very powerful headline here. This is from Fox News. 5 terrifying flashpoints that could ignite, look at this, global war. This was published in Fox News. 5 terrifying flashpoints that could ignite global war. All right, let's go through this pretty quick. Number 1 scenario, Ukraine's audacious drone strikes deep inside Russian territory, reportedly destroying or damaging a significant share of Russia's strategic bomber fleet, bears the hallmarks of Western involvement. While Kyiv claimed responsibility, the attack's sophistication, including precise long-range targeting and coordinated timing, suggests U.S. or NATO intelligence and technological support. This could be a trigger for, again, just all hell breaking loose with Russia and Ukraine. Second, efforts to rein in Iran's nuclear ambitions have collapsed further. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khomeini publicly rejected a U.S. proposal that would permanently, tightly restricted low-level uranium enrichment, denouncing the offer as 100% against our interest. He reaffirmed Iran's demand for full sovereignty enrichment rights. We'll get deeper into the Iran developments in just a moment. But again, this is another flashpoint with a war in Iran. Thirdly, a high anticipated phone call between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin yields no diplomatic breakthrough. We could have, again, another Cold War on our hand. Fourth, a chilling threat emerged on American soil. Federal prosecutors charged a Chinese national couple with, did y'all hear this? Attempting to smuggle a bioagent into the U.S., which is a crop-killing fungus labeled by the Justice Department as a potential agro-terrorism weapon. The pathogen can devastate wheat, barley, and corn, and its toxins are harmful to both humans and livestock. So we're talking about biological threats here from a foreign nation. Number 5, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, warned that China may be preparing to launch a, quote, full-scale invasion of Taiwan. If that happens, ladies and gentlemen, America will be pulled right in the middle of this. So we're talking about 5 flashpoints that could trigger global war, quote unquote, World War III. Now, I know many of you guys already know about this, but we're going to talk about this, and you've been anticipating us talking about this, so we're going to get right into this. All right, the U.S. Embassy in the Middle East prepares to, quote, evacuate after a warning from Iran. Guys, by all means, it looks like the Middle East is preparing for the inevitable. The United States Embassy in Baghdad is preparing for an ordered evacuation amid rising security threats in the region. An Iraqi security official and U.S. source told Reuters yesterday. The Associated Press reported that the order is limited to non-essential personnel at the embassy. The U.S. military has also authorized a voluntary departure of troops' dependents from locations across the Middle East. Let me read that again. The U.S. military has also authorized a voluntary departure of troops' dependents from locations across the Middle East. And that's what this report right here from Fox News is talking about. Hegseth authorizes voluntary departure of military dependents from, again, across the Middle East amid rising tensions. Now, I'm not sure if you saw this or not, but there is more chatter coming out. Now, there was a report from the Jerusalem Post that Donald Trump told Benjamin Netanyahu that, quote, the war is exhausting itself, finish it. Now, he's talking about the war in Gaza. So there's, again, more reports. Reports indicate that a phone call that took place between Trump and Netanyahu, this was on Monday evening. Let's read a little bit about this. U.S. President Donald Trump told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to end the war in Gaza and to remove the option of striking Iran. Wow, let me say that again. U.S. President Donald Trump not only told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to end the war in Gaza, but to, quote, remove the option of striking Iran. Now, this is according to an N12 report attributed these quotes to conversation that took place between Trump and Netanyahu on Monday. Trump told Netanyahu, quote, I want you to end the war, reportedly making it clear to Netanyahu that, quote, it's not just the Witkoff deal that can be reached. Both finish it. The war is exhausting itself. Okay? So, again, this is taking place behind the scenes. It's not just what we hear about openly, but it's this kind of stuff that really makes me nervous as well, because we're dealing with Israel here, the major timepiece of prophecy. The American president reportedly said, quote, I believe I will be able to bring an agreement in the end. For now, we need to take the attack off the agenda. So again, Trump is urging Netanyahu to not pull the trigger on a military strike in Iran, but it looks and it appears that time has now come to an end, and we're going to see the inevitable. Let me pull up another report here. Look, check this out. This is from CBS News. Israel is posed to launch operation on Iran. Multiple sources are indicating this. All right, let's get to it right here.
That Israel is fully ready to launch operations into Iran. They say this is part of the reason some Americans were advised to leave that region. The U.S. is anticipating Iran could retaliate on certain American sites in Iraq. Israeli officials and White House spokespeople declined to comment on this. President Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, is still planning to meet with Iran for a 6th round of talks on the country's nuclear program in the coming days.
All right, folks. So there you have that. Now that leads us to this conclusion. We have to ask ourselves, let's go to America first. We're gonna wrap this up today. What's going to happen in 2 days, 48 hours, on Saturday, during Trump's military parade in Washington? What's going to happen with this No Kings protest, peaceful protest that they're declaring across all these cities in America? Was LA the preview? Will this spiral out of control? Will foreign actors get involved? Dark agendas, funding, igniting something so large on a scale that that it's not going to be able to be confined. Will this fulfill what David Wilkerson saw? 1,000 fires burning in the streets of America, New York, Chicago, LA, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and the list goes on, Seattle, Minnesota. Again, wherever it could be your city. It could be my city. Again, we have to be alert, be vigilant, keep our head on a swivel, prepare physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, whatever you got to do, guys, to prepare for this. Have a contingency plan in order physically, everything with your family. You need to be aware of this. Pull up the maps. We've reported all this stuff on endtimeheadlines.org, endtimeheadlines.com. You can pull up the maps. You can literally go on a live map and see where these things are going to be located and see how far they are from where you live. Is it even worth going out of your house on Saturday to your downtown area, your city, if this stuff's going on? That's something you and your family is going to have to decide. Then let's talk about the Middle East. Is this just another incident of a boy crying wolf? Is this just another regurgitation of Israel's going to strike Iran any day now? All intelligence shows that they're going to strike, but then a day goes by, 2 days go by, a week go by, 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks, and it just blows off, and it's out of the news. Nobody's talking about it, and it just blows over, and Israel doesn't strike Iran. Or is this it? Are we seeing military movement like we're seeing the evacuations, the preparations, all this stuff? Is it now time? Will there be a negotiation made? Will Iran agree to a deal, or will they reject it? And here's the biggest question I have. If Israel says enough is enough, and they pull the trigger, and they say, we're going in, will the United States, along with Donald Trump, be fully supportive of a military strike against Iran's nuclear facility? Because again, if these rumors are true, these reports that Trump told Netanyahu in the war and hold off from bombing Iran, what is going to happen if Israel says, you know what? You're either with us or you're against us. If you're not going to go with us, we're going to go alone. And they carry out the strikes against Iran. How will this administration respond? That's the huge question. And that's major, ladies and gentlemen, because again, we've talked about it. If Israel has its back turned on, if America turns its back on Israel, then we as a nation is in huge, big, giant trouble. I don't know how to emphasize it anymore of how urgent this is. This is, it looks as if we're stepping in to real strong birth pangs here of wars, rumors of wars, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. The distress of nations, Luke 21. with perplexity, confusion, madness. People, they don't know where to turn, and it's just all chaos breaking loose. So again, we want to remind you of Luke 21:28. Jesus said, when you begin to see all of these things coming to pass, look up and keep your heads lifted up, because your redemption is surely drawing near. Listen, endtimeheadlines.org, endtimeheadlines.com. Again, don't forget to pick up your free app if you've not got it yet. You can get it on Apple and Android. Hit yes to push notifications once you download the app, and you'll be ready to go with every headline, every podcast, every update, breaking news. Everything is going to be right there at your fingertips. As always, guys, if this ministry blessed you, encouraged you, equips you, informs you, I don't know your relationship. If this is your home church, you get fed here, you just want to be a blessing back, you can pray about becoming a monthly partner. There's 2 different ways you can do that. Electronically is probably the easiest way to do that, and there's multiple ways you can do that. Or you can do the old school method, which is giving by check or money order, and right there on the screen, you can make it out to End Time Headlines, P.O. Box 1391. That's going to be Monroe, Georgia, 30655. So, guys, we're going to sign off for this Thursday night on June 12th. We plan on, Lord willing, to be right back here tomorrow night on the 13th, the eve of all the chaos in the what's going to happen in the 14th. We don't know, but many believe it's going to be chaos. We'll see. But we'll be right here tomorrow night, Lord willing, on Friday night, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, with another great program. Until we see you on the next one, I pray the Lord bless you, keep you, and may his countenance shine upon you. We'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to the End Time Headlines podcast. We pray that you've been blessed and equipped by today's message. For more information about how you can help partner with our ministry, please visit endtimeheadlines.org.